Hi there, and I hope your day is going well. Now, this devotion comes as the third in a series I'm calling The Comparison Trap, where we are thinking about some comparisons we can make as followers of Christ that can become real quagmires. And the trap I want you to think with me about today is this: as a follower of Jesus, comparing my gifts to those of other believers. Now, about this, God has used Paul to let us in on some important truths. Now, the entire 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians is devoted to the subject of spiritual gifts. But I want you to focus with me on just one segment of this chapter, starting with verse 14. This is what Paul says. Indeed, the body is not one part, but many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body, it is not for that reason any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, it is not for that reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God has arranged each one of the parts in the body just as He wanted. And if they were all the same part, well, where would the body be? Now, what we read here is Paul describing a real comparison trap occurring. By that I mean Paul is envisioning this scenario where you have one believer who says, I've got this gift. God has gifted me in this particular way. But that person over there, he's gifted in a different fashion that by comparison seems a lot more significant. And the more we think about that, we might get to the point where we would say, I suppose then my gift is of no significance, real use, or meaningful benefit. Now, why would that become a trap? Why is this dangerous? Because if you think your gift is of no benefit, you won't use it. So what is it that God is using Paul to say to us to prevent us from getting stuck in this trap? Well, a couple of things that we have to keep in mind, and here's the first one. God gifts people as He chooses. God gifts people as He chooses. Can I just remind you of something I hope you know, which is this: God knows everything. And because He knows everything, He knows what is best. And it's not simply that He is seeing things from the big picture, but even to the most minuscule detail, He knows everything that is and will be going on. Now, this unlimited knowledge has led God to decide things like, I want to gift Michael in this way. I want to gift Caroline in that way. I want to gift you in another way. Why? Well, because for whatever reason, God knows that to be best. Now, will I always like this? Well, maybe not. But then again, how much do I know? Well, in the scheme of things, not very much. And to prevent getting stuck in this comparison trap, I need to tell myself that the God who knows everything, well, He knows what is best, and based on that, has gifted people. The second thing I want you to get is this: God is making a whole body, not just random parts. God's making a whole body, not just random parts. In this passage, Paul talks about different parts of the body ranging from a hand to an eye to an ear to a nose. And obviously they each do very different things. But the goal is for them to each do their own part, because working together, well, it makes something pretty wonderful. Eyes and ears are very different. They do very different things. And I hope you're glad that you've got both. Aren't you glad to have 2 eyes and 2 ears instead of just 4 ears? Eyes and ears, though doing very different things, both yield wonderful and complementary benefits to the entire body. If you had 4 ears and no eyes, that would pose some real challenges. You could hear really well, but you would be as blind as a bat. As God has uniquely gifted us, He did so thinking that we will be working together as a unified body, where for every challenge there would be individuals uniquely gifted to use their God-given gift to meet the need. Now, of course, this is going to require every part of the body doing its different yet essential part. And the problem is, when you start comparing your giftedness to that of another believer, you'll start thinking maybe that their gift is superior to yours, or yours may be superior to them. Sometimes even worse, what you may wind up doing is trying to mimic or act like you have a gift that someone else has that you don't. And I suppose technically I could walk around on my hands, but that's not a good way to get around. I need to let my feet do the walking, not my hands. Those who have the gifts should be using those. And if I am doing my part, everything is better. If I don't, the rest of the body suffers. God intends for you to function not as an individual, random part, rather an important component of a whole body with giftedness that is different from others, yet still essential. Now, the last thing I want you to keep in mind to guard against this particular comparison trap is this: other believers are depending on you. Now look at the question Paul poses in verse 19. If they were all the same part, where would the body be? Now the thought is that if we were all doing the same thing, everyone, the totality of the body, would be adversely affected. If I've got 4 ears but no kidneys, or if the kidneys aren't working, I've got some real problems, right? Well, absolutely. And what I want you to remember is that God, who again knows everything, has decided that you should have particular gifts or a gift. He did so knowing that there would be some particular challenges or opportunities that the body of believers would experience, and you would be uniquely qualified to help meet that need or seize that opportunity. And if you don't use your gift, well, then everyone suffers. Everyone else misses out. Put another way, other believers are depending on you. Is this comparison trap I'm talking about real? It is. And in truth, I've experienced it. Years ago, I remember when I first started in ministry, I felt some real feelings of inadequacy. In particular, if I was going to visit someone in the hospital who was experiencing a terminal disease, or someone else who was just going through a really dark season of life, I felt so inadequate. I knew there were other people who were really good at being what I would describe like a warm blanket, like an emotional hug to those that are going through some dark times. And their words, like when they would talk to these people, it always sounded like it was ripped from a Hallmark card. And at least early on, I tried to do that stuff, but I couldn't. I was so lousy at that. And one of the things in time I began to discover is that while I wasn't good at necessarily giving people a warm fuzzy, God might use me many times instead to be a distraction, to put a smile on their face, to experience a moment of laughter in what otherwise might be a sea of tears. Now, in the end, what I discovered is that there's a place and a need for both. God has gifted me more in one way than the other. He's gifted others in a different manner. And I've decided I'm not going to even worry about which one is better, because that's a trap. And it's a trap I don't want to get stuck in. And it's one I don't want you to get stuck in either. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day, that God blesses you and you stay away from this comparison trap.